You got the call. Welcome to the big leagues, kid. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the call-up presented by Triple Play Fantasy Week 20. We are now into the 2 blank digits now. It's pretty crazy last month of the season or so as we're wrapping up the minor league season here. Thank you guys for being along for the ride. Of course, you know my co-host, Michael, aka Baby Huey. Michael Richards in the house. Mike, how's it going?
It's going good, Mendy. Glad to be back as usual. We have got another fine guest here today for you. It's actually really hot here, so if you see me wiping down my face a little bit, that's because the heat's ridiculous in this room. But I've liked this guy since the moment I got onto Twitter a couple years ago, and I'm very happy to have a chance to sit down and talk with him about Dynasty because I know he's a really great player, and I'm happy to hear his thoughts on prospects.
I thought you were wiping down the sweat because you were looking at the standings in TGFBI.
Yeah, that too. I'm stressing I'm trying to stay away from that as much as possible, but it's stressful playing against all those great players.
Well, of course, Mike touched on, we have a great guest tonight. We welcome in a man. He's an MILB prospect analyst. He's also does tons of dynasty stuff, fantasy baseball writing, assistant editor for Prospects 1500. He is you could say he lives near those Syracuse Orangemen up in New York here. He's also created the Too Early MILB mock and just a great prospect mind in general, ladies and gentlemen. It is the one and only Ben Wilson. How's it going, man?
Hey, thank you both so much for having me on the show, and amazing introduction. Thank you very much. Really, really appreciate that. And yeah, just so excited to be on. This it's a fantastic show you guys do, and the heavy hitting guests. I'm really honored to be part of it. So definitely excited to dive into a lot of great names today, and in some cases some of the deeper league names that can help a lot of different people. So really jazzed to be here. Thanks so much.
Of course, man. You are, again, a great prospect mind. We talked before the show. You say you just love Dynasty. You've been doing Dynasty stuff for a long time. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background with Dynasty, also your work with Prospects 1500? You're around the game so much. I feel like people need to know just what you've been doing all of this time with all the prospect stuff.
Yeah, I got into my first keeper league. It has to have been over 10 years by this point, and I'm still in that league. And really, I think the linchpin of being, a great dynasty player is knowing the player pool as deep as possible and jumping on, that newest name, to be first in line, to unearth the next great prospect. So that's, been a joy of mine for so long. And, and then I really started writing, back in 2017. That's when I was in graduate school, and, really just, really early on, had, Scott Green, the president of Prospects 1500, saw my work and brought me onto the site there. And I've covered the Mets, I've covered the Red Sox minor league systems, and I'm doing assistant editing work at the site now. And it's just a great community of prospect minds and minor league baseball enthusiasts. And one of the main things that I started there, which you mentioned, Mendy, was the Too Early MILB mock, which is really a dynasty style startup draft just for minor league baseball players, and really just gives really deep really deep names at positions. I mean, it's 2 catchers, you're picking 40 catchers, things like that. So the deepest leagues have always been a passion of mine. Michael and I know played in a now retired league together. It's been amazing to be part of the industry, part of the community, and especially the dynasty, deep dynasty, prospect town part of this corner of the world.
Well, the fact that you dig so deep for your prospects and the fact you love Dynasty, you're a perfect fit for this show. We don't always just talk about the names everyone knows about. We like to really dig deep into the farm systems and really kind of try to be first on a lot of these guys. So everybody that's watching the show, if they're out there in a Dynasty league and these guys are available, they can kind of get a jump and potentially beat their league mates here. So you're the perfect guy for the job. And with that being said, let's jump right in. Let's talk about minor league players of the week. So these are players that over the last 7-10 days or so have really been putting up some eye-popping numbers in the minor leagues. Let's kick things off here, Ben, with the guy you first want to talk about here, and Mason Auer, who plays for the Tampa Bay Rays in their organization, an outfielder. Last 10 days, a 364, 447, 768 slash. He's got 3 home runs, 4 steals. And on the season, a pretty good line of those 43 stolen bases are mighty tasty there. Ben, why don't we talk about this guy? What is it about him? Is it just this past week, or in general, have you been a fan of this guy?
Yeah, so my affinity for this incredible player, Mason Auer, for those listening, you spell the name Auer. And Mason Auer really first popped onto my radar when I was doing first year player draft prep over the winter. Mason Auer was a 5th round draft pick in the 2021 draft. He came out of the JUCO ranks, and anyone in the deep dynasty realm knows that you can find tremendous first year player draft value from the JUCO ranks. And Mason Auer can really do it all on the field. I mean, you watch just a short amount of film, you see the incredible athlete that he is. He has a huge throwing arm, former pitcher. Mason Auer's an outfielder, center fielder, right fielder. And the things that pop out right away, big, broad-shouldered kid, he's really a physical specimen. And, he's, really emerged this whole year as a hitter. And, started the year in low A and got 60 games there. And, triple slash in low A, 293, 378, 478, 4 home runs, 24 steals. So the power and speed is definitely there. And when he's moved up to high A, in 2/3 the amount of games, he has double the amount of home runs, up to 9 home runs in only 42 games. And, almost has 20 steals. So, for the full year, it's, 13 home runs, 43 steals, OPS over 850. And, this is a really exciting player. And, can really do it all, I think, with the all fields power. So, real tool shed profile, if you want to gamble on this kind of potential outcome, it's pretty enormous from a fantasy perspective. And, he's only rostered in 2% of leagues on Fantrax. So I think for, leagues that have 200 plus prospects, definitely take a peek on your waiver wire to see if he's available.
That's Mason Auer of the Tampa Bay Rays, somebody that is digging deep there, 2% owned, and Ben is a big fan of him. So make sure, keep your eye out there, see what he keeps doing, and make sure you add him if you need to in your dynasty leagues. Mike, let's go to this next player here, and let's talk about the hitter you want to talk about, and that's Harry Ford of Seattle. And again, Mike is a Seattle fan, so he definitely watches a lot of these players even more closely here. And Harry Ford, a catcher for the Seattle Mariners and their organization right now in low A. What is it about him that's been exciting for you to watch?
Well, I've liked Harry Ford going back to even when he was in high school. I was very intrigued by the power speed potential. And he, looking at his scouting grades right off the bat, it says average hit tool in plus power, plus raw power with plus speed. I actually think he has an above average hit tool. So I'll start by saying that an above average hit tool plus power plus speed for a catcher, that's very rare. As you see this week, he's got the 3 home runs and 6 stolen bases, which you love to see. The 17.8% walk rate that's what really gets me excited as far as his ability to control the strike zone. I'd like to see his K percentage come down a little bit, but he's still a 19-year-old in A ball. This is just a rare combination. I mean, I know people are in on Harry Ford and they like him, but look, going through drafts this season, like a player like Dalton Varsho, he was going 6th round of redraft leagues because of his power speed potential at the position. If Harry Ford stays at catcher down the line and this skill set remains, which it looks like it is, he's a very athletic, flashy type of player, very strong and fast. So I just think he's going to be very valuable in fantasy leagues. People are going to want him in redraft leagues down the road. And so it's hard to rank catchers in Dynasty just because of the position. But he's also a player that I think is capable of moving off the position. If the Mariners feel that's what they want to do with him, he could move into the outfield or the infield, which would probably speed up his path to the majors. But watching the team over the years, I expect him to start next year in high A and do well there and be promoted up to double A next year and then be in the mix as like their number one prospect the following season.
I mean, anytime you see a catcher with 21 stolen bases, I mean, can you imagine if he gets to the big leagues and he has anywhere near that type of speed, even if it's like 15 stolen bases from the catcher position? We saw it with Dalton Varsho and just how much he got bumped up because of that. So it's a very interesting player and somebody I definitely want to make sure we keep an eye on. He keeps going up the minor leagues here. Like you said, Mike, I guess high A to start next year, double A, but somebody I'm sure that's going to be popping up a lot more as we go along here. Let's go ahead and let's talk about another player here. This one's a little bit more well-known. Michael Busch, second baseman for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Over the last 10 days, he does have a 333 batting average, 3 home runs, 11 RBIs. And on the season between AA and AAA, over 500 plate appearances, a 280 batting average, 27 bombs, 138 WRC plus. He's also walking in over 13% of at-bats right now. I really like Michael Busch just this week, especially. I was looking, he had a 4-hit game, I think including a game-winning hit in one of them. And in August was hitting 274, 337, 452, 4 homers, 18 RBIs, 9 walks, and 6 multi-hit games this month. It just seems like he's getting hot at the right time. Already a guy that has a great just hit tool in general that I've seen people talk about, that he's comparative to kind of Max Muncy, just a very patient hitter, sweet left-handed stroke, able to go gap to gap. So he just seems like he's a very steady hitter. Obviously, I don't see him getting called up at the end of this season, but he's in AAA right now. So if things, maybe he breaks camp with them if he has a good spring training with them next year. But Michael Busch is somebody that's on the verge, if not the end of this year, potentially next year early on. So somebody that, again, most people know about, but he is making some noise right now. All right, next player. Let's go to the pitching side of things, and let's kick things off here with Prelander Berroa, another Seattle Mariners player. They just have so many good prospects in their system. Over the last 10 days, 9 innings, giving up 2 runs, 15 strikeouts, good for a 2 ERA. And between high A and double A this year, does have 132 strikeouts and 85 innings, a 2.33 ERA, 280 FIP, 38.5 K percentage. Just great looking numbers there, Ben. Tell us a little bit more about Mr. Berroa.
Sure. I mean, Prelander Berroa this season, and especially recently, he's making a lot of noise, and what he's doing is really impressive. Just reaching the AA level, and he has 5 outings there now. His strikeout percentage is over 45%. It's jaw dropping, truly. And I think with pitching prospects, I think historically, Prelander Berroa may get a little bit knocked for being under 6 feet, 170. But, I really think that, with pitchers like Freddie Peralta, who, are undersized pitchers who just absolutely have the dazzling stuff, you absolutely have to pay attention to those guys. So, was originally in the San Francisco Giants system. I think that was a trade that they would definitely want back at this point. The fastball for Prelander Berroa is, in the 94 to 97 range. And, and so it's a fastball slider main combination. And, he can back foot it to left-handers. It's really a pretty wicked offering too to right-handers. So, and he can also spot it in the zone. So it's a pretty impressive and versatile offering for him. And, there's a change up there too. And I think that, in the high minors, he's going to have to really show that. The walk rate is a little high at this point, but he's giving up so little contact that, really it's, been a incredible run so far. Like I said, I mean, he's under 6 feet, but he has long arms and he's really athletic. So he's in a great pitching organization, as Michael knows, covering the Mariners in the Pacific Northwest. This is another pitcher who has 2% rostership on Fantrax. So, if he's a name floating out there, definitely I think he's one to pounce on.
Yeah, he really seems like he's a really rising star in the Seattle Mariners organization. And again, you can see the numbers there, just doing great things for them. So keep an eye on Mr. Berroa there. Mike, let's talk about another pitcher here, and let's go to the Los Angeles Dodgers organization again. So we've got 2 Seattle Mariners and 2 Los Angeles Dodgers here. Nick Nastrini, woohoo! Nick Nastrini. That's a tongue twister for you folks. Try to say that at home 3 times fast. Pitcher in the Los Angeles Dodgers organization. 13.1 innings over the last 10 days, 17 strikeouts, a 2.03 ERA. And then on the season between high A and double A, he's got 99.2 innings, 144 strikeouts, a 3.61 ERA, 3.88 FIP. Tell us about Nastrini and another pitcher. Again, the Dodgers seem like they have a lot of great pitching coming up through the pipeline here.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said last week when I covered Bobby Miller, the Dodgers are just a pitching factory right now, and it's the biggest thing with them is figuring out how all of this talent's going to make it onto their team. Some of them are probably going to be trade pieces along the way, but this guy is catching my eye. He caught my eye probably about a month ago, and I didn't really know a lot about him. And then he's kind of reappearing on my radar again. So I've been digging into him a little bit, and he was a 4th-round pick in 2021. And shockingly enough, the Dodgers found a guy with a plus fastball, plus slider, and plus curveball. So 3+ pitches. So he's got that starter's repertoire. He's a 6'3", 215-pounder. He's up in the upper levels now, getting it done. He's improved since he's moved up to Double A. As usual with every pitching prospect, it comes down to the command with him, but he's showing good improvements there. I'd like to see the walk percentage come down a little bit, but a 35% strikeout rate in a great organization in the upper levels with 3+ pitches. That seems like a lot of good things going for him, especially for a guy who's not really talked about a lot. I'm not sure where his roster percentage is at right now, but I don't think it's particularly high compared to some other well-known players. So he's definitely a guy to keep on your radar and maybe scoop up if you need some pitching right now.
All right, again, that's Nick Nastrini of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Let's finish out the pitchers here real quick. And I believe, Mike, you can correct me. I think we've talked about him once on this show. Tink Hence of the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, the numbers aren't going to pop at you. I know it's kind of breaking the code for this section. Over the last 10 days, nothing great, a 4.26 ERA, 1.42 whip. But I've just noticed coming along here, I mean, 44.1 innings pitched, 71 strikeouts, a 1.62 ERA, and 1.45 FIP, 43% K percentage to a 7.3% walk percentage. And one of the reasons I really kind of just, especially with him, is I believe that he pitched, if I'm not mistaken, he had 4 shutout innings this past week, and he was decent in that. I'm pulling it up just to double check that. But yes, Tink Hence is the number 6 prospect according to MLB.com. 4 scoreless innings, 3 hits, struck out 4, and touched 98 with his fastball. So he gave up 3 runs in his last appearance, and then 8 scoreless outings and 14 total appearances. So the numbers are great. Obviously, he's an electric arm, and just somebody that's obviously a great, just athletic young kid. I don't know, and Mike, maybe Ben, you might know better. I don't know if he's necessarily going to be projected to be a starting pitcher, but he could be a really nice bullpen arm with that velocity and those types of numbers. So I thought he could be someone that could really fast at 20 years old already in Double A could rise through the system pretty quickly. All right.
Yeah. Well, I'll throw in. I do think he's a starter long term. I think they're just ramping him up slowly because they're so high on him. I think he's going to be one of the big risers over the next 6 months or whatever on the pitching side, and probably be on some top 100 lists.
Yeah, and he's always been able to spin the curveball. And if you have with Hence and similar to Berroa, Prelander Berroa, we just talked about a little earlier. If you have two pitches that are in bursts, plus, this is somebody that definitely could be a starter.
All right, make sure you guys keep an eye on Tink Hence. Let's talk about some notable promotions. And there's been two. Last week we were chock full of them. Cade Cavalli and Drew Waters are the big ones here. Cade Cavalli with the Nats, Drew Waters with the Kansas City Royals. Real quick, Ben, can you tell us a little about Cade Cavalli, who had a little bit of a failed first attempt up at the big leagues and now is back up and starting tomorrow's game as we record Thursday night for the Nats? Do we believe in him that he's going to be stable for that rotation long term?
Yeah, Cade Cavalli is, really in terms of just the repertoire, the physicality. This is really a potential, at least number 2 starter type for really now the Nationals turning the page, I think, for their next generation. After the World Series run, and I mean, for me, Cavalli, really has. I think really a very exciting, future ahead of him. And I think he's going to be pretty limited just in terms of, his usage. Has always battled, some sort of injury. But, rightly so, the Nationals have been very careful with him, really wanting to make sure that his development, is carrying on. But, this is going to be a really high strikeout pitcher, for a long time.
All right, Cade Cavalli, we are excited to watch you pitch. Let's talk about our prospect watch players that are doing things just throughout the season we've got our eye on here. Kicking things off with Werner Blakely, a third baseman in the Los Angeles Angels organization right now at low A ball, over 300 batting average, 19 steals, 26% K rate is not great, but not horrible, but he's walking 20.3% of the time right now. Ben, the Angels, I feel like they're such a hard team to judge because their prospect development has not been great on both sides of the ball. But they need guys to step on there and help that major league team in so many ways. Are we excited for Werner Blakely here?
Oh, absolutely. Werner Blakely, coming out of the that 2020 first year player draft class, has really been a favorite of mine for a long time. This is a extremely high character, high driven athlete. Just a quick aside. He's from Detroit, Michigan. Really models, emulates, and wants to exceed Derek Jeter. In his career, as a fellow Michigan product, in Major League Baseball. And Blakely's very driven, and you all you need to do is watch just a short amount of film on Werner Blakely, and you're gonna fall in love with the swing. You're gonna fall in love with the 6'3" frame. The swing of his is really loose and fluid. You can see from his frame that he's going to be able to get to power. He came in, into pro ball as a shortstop, and he's played exclusively third base this year. It is evident. I think he's going to be able to stick on the dirt in some capacity, no matter what his athleticism is going to play. And, he, just as a quick note, he hasn't played in the month of August. I'm not sure exactly what the injury is right now. But I think it's actually, a potential buying opportunity, because the hype train isn't rolling really as much as it could be, because, like you were outlining, Mendy, the numbers are tremendous. Even in basically just the same number of games, between his, 21 and 22 campaigns, he's done, a tremendous amount of work, and it's really showing. And, so I think that this is, a prospect that everyone should be super excited about. He has almost 20 steals this year. I think he's not an absolute burner, but, he's a long strided heads up base runner who I think is going to be, a really exciting prospect coming up. Hopefully he can get back on the field soon. And it's going to be exciting to see him hit the high minors.
Werner Blakely, a young, exciting guy in the Los Angeles Angels organization, got a lot of great tools there. Hopefully can continue to rehab it and get back to where we hope we can see him on the field here. Mike, let's go to talk about Aaron Zavala, outfielder for the Texas Rangers. And between high A and double A this year, 289 batting average, hitting 50 RBIs, 12 stolen bases, 13 home runs. I think just across the board, looking at his profile, just kind of doing a little bit of everything here. And my question to you, is he somebody that long-term you think could be a major part of what the Texas Rangers are trying to build?
Yeah, Aaron Zavala was someone that I wasn't super familiar with because I was a little bit behind on the draft stuff last year, but he was a second-round pick out of Oregon, and the first thing that catches my attention is his plus hit tool. So that's a great foundation for a player, and I'm not sure that he's got anything more than maybe above average power or speed, if maybe even average, but I think that hit tool is going to carry him to the majors. I don't think this is a superstar type of profile guy, but as you said, a very well-rounded, probably underrated. I noticed that a lot of the smart industry people that were doing the Prospect 1 ADP mock were selecting him. So it's just something that it catches my attention. Overall, I think he's like a high floor type of guy. The Rangers move their prospects quickly. I wouldn't be surprised to see him up in the major leagues next year now that he's up in the upper levels. And like I said, I don't think it's necessarily going to get more than like 15, maybe 20 home runs at his peak and maybe 10 to 15 steals. But with nearly 280, like a 290 batting average, I think he's going to have a lot of value in OBP leagues, similar to like Michael Busch and other guys that we've highlighted today. He's going to be even more valuable in that setting. So I just think the overall situation is worth keeping an eye on. He's also improved since he's moved up to double A, which is usually a pretty big step, that high A to double A leap. So when a player starts producing at an even higher level once they move up, that's something that I like to look at as well. So he's rostered, I know, in 10% of leagues. So he's known, but he's not super known. So give him a look if you're thinking about some proximity and a good hit tool.
I love the deep dive there. 10% own, which means again, keep your eye on him. This is the time to make that jump. Luis Matos will be the last player in this section we'll talk about really quick. I'll just touch on him in high A ball. He has got not necessarily the greatest line, 210, 270, 642 slash, but he's got 11 homers, 40 RBIs, only a 16.2% K rate. Needs to definitely walk more. The numbers aren't going to overwhelm you, but he's a top 5 prospect in the Giants organization. Has shown just when he was in the other minor levels or the minor leagues, consistently Kang between 11%, 12%, 12%. This is actually 16%, the highest it's been at any level. But again, very manageable. Needs to get the walks up, as I mentioned before. The batting average has been nowhere near this low at any level, so I expect him to be able to fix that the more he gets used to the pitching there. And this is a guy that, is a very good bat. You could see potentially like 20 home runs from him, I believe, on the season this year. Like I mentioned on the screen, as you look at the graphic, as 11. So a 20 home run bat that could hit 300, do a little bit of everything for the San Francisco Giants. He was part of their big international signing class, I believe, in 2018 when they had Marco Luciano also in that same class. So he's somebody to keep an eye on. Again, right now, he's not putting up the best numbers. So this could be the best time to jump on him right now, while his value may not be as high. I think he's going to definitely be someone that turns it around big time next year.
Absolutely. Luis Matos was someone that I had in the mix to be number 1 overall at the end of this season. That's how high I was on him coming into the season, with like Corbin Carroll and all these other big time power speed guys. I think this is the best buy low probably in Dynasty, because like you said, all those other things you look for are still there. He hasn't lost the ability to make contact. He still has power speed. Something's off, but this is the most surprising decline of any player this season, because I was almost 100% confident he was going to be a top 10 prospect right now.
And he might very well be next year. He might at least climb up the ranks again next year. But like you just said, great buy low time. I know we were talking about that with Anthony Volpe just was a month or two ago, and he's starting to come back to life. These are especially with prospects. If you know long term, these are the guys you trust the talent and you believe in. When you have numbers like this coming up at a certain point in a season, you can jump on that if you really believe in the talent. So this is a great example of that. Let's close out the show with our who's next. Who is next to get the call? We've been pretty hot recently. I think all these guys have literally gotten the call within the next week of us doing this. So hopefully it'll be the same with these three gentlemen. Starting off with Justin Dirden, who is actually someone I don't think we've ever talked about on this show. So I really love digging deep here like you did, Ben. Age 25 in AA, AAA for the Houston Astros, 21 home runs, 89 RBIs. Looks like he does a little bit of everything here. Do you see him, especially, I mean, the Astros right now are obviously trying to play for the number 1 seed in the American League. You think he can really help them out down the stretch here?
Yeah, Justin Dirden's an interesting story. Really just turned 25, outfielder, undrafted player, and really relatively unheralded. And he's just exploded this year. It's another Astros strike gold moment. And really the question for the Houston Astros, for really the whole year has been center field and the center field production. It's been a combination of Chas McCormick, Mauricio Dubon, Jake Myers, and, Chas McCormick has been the best offensive producer. Jake Myers had a pretty significant shoulder injury that, he hasn't quite, been himself this year. But I mean, long term, a great bat. And, I think Justin Dirden, the real benefit of him is, he gives, the Astros potentially a left-handed option in center field. And, I think there's many things to like with Dirden. Offensively, he's an extra base hit machine. And, he's slugging over 600. He has gap-to-gap doubles power and, has a little bit of speed too. And he's a good defender in center and right. And, I'm not envisioning an enormous impact like you had alluded to, Mendy, just in terms of, the Astros are pretty stacked, especially because they have Yordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker, flanking, the center field potentially. But, maybe at the very least, maybe he's a Derek Fisher type of role for this team in a playoff run. They're missing the professional at bats from Michael Brantley, on some level, who's out for the year with injury. And, the one question at this point with Dirden is the strikeout rate at AAA. It is a little on the high side, as he's adjusted the level. But, it's been at 23%, for the year. But he couples that with a double-digit walk rate. So, potentially, from unheralded to, being potentially a contributor, to a Houston Astros deep playoff run.
I can't wait to see him play now. It's one of those things when you see that name on your screen, gets the call. This is one of the few shows that brings him up. So great call here from Ben Wilson. Really just being on this. Again, I haven't seen too much of this anywhere. So I love it. And all the credit to you if he does get the call here this week. Gunnar Henderson, somebody that's really risen up prospect rankings. He's now one of the top prospects in baseball. Him and Corbin Carroll have been talked about just in pairing here. Both of them getting called up here just for the last month of the season for teams to basically kind of see what they got so they can have them try to get rookie of the year next year and get those extra draft picks. 19 home runs, 75 RBIs, 19 stolen bases across AA and AAA this year. Just a little bit of everything. I'm excited to watch him in Baltimore, Mike, even though I'm not living in Baltimore anymore. Do you really think this is the time? Is Gunnar Henderson time in the next couple days here?
Well, normally I would say no, because a 21-year-old who's just getting started in AAA isn't really the type of player you want to push. But these rumors that you're saying, like where there's fire, there's smoke. And I think I was reading that their beat writers are having to answer questions on a daily basis about when he's going to be called up. And the little signs I'm hearing from the manager and the different people that make these decisions, it feels like they're just trying to prepare themselves to figure out where they're going to play him and how they're going to get him in the lineup every day, because they don't want to bring him up to sit on the bench. But their big concern is not passing that 130 at bats for the season. I do think they think he can help them right now and help them in contention. And I actually saw that he had played a couple games at second base and first base. So they're really trying to figure out a way to get him into lineup and get him used to playing multiple positions potentially. Normally I'd say they're not going to call him up, but I think this is going to happen. And I think he's going to play every day once it happens too. And the way that he's improved, I mean, it's important for people to remember he had a 30% strikeout rate in high A last year. Like he's made a massive improvement to his approach at the plate and kept all the good things that made him intriguing to start with. That's why he's like a top 5 prospect now.
Can't wait to watch him. The O's fighting for a wild card spot, and he could maybe be a big part of that. Last real quick here, Triston Cases. Somewhere John is smiling because he's brought up on the show here. In AAA this year, 9 homers, 33 RBIs. The big question here, I think, is because Eric Hosmer's hurt. Do we think that this is finally the Triston Cases? Is this what was needed for him to finally get called up here?
Yeah, I really wish it was, in the short term. Actually, Triston Cases was on my short list for this segment too. Given the injury to Eric Hosmer, the Red Sox did go with Franchi Cordero, coming up again. And, it's a little unclear, first of all, Triston Cases had a really long-term injury this year. He missed a lot of time. So, I hate to say it as a Red Sox fan, you can see it right behind me, my Red Sox decoration here. But the team is really fading, on a playoff run. And, I think if things were going in a little bit of a different direction for the Red Sox, I think that they would really, have to think pretty seriously, about bringing him up. I think that that he's ready, I believe, and especially defensively, I know, Triston Cases is a big slugger who has all fields power. He's going to be awesome. Defense is not going to hold him back. It's not going to be that cliche, because he is a good defender. So I think he is going to impact the Red Sox. I sure hope it is. I at least hope he gets a cup of coffee. And I hope that they don't give up on this, despite this cold stretch, because I think that he would be a real force, and I'd love to see it.
Yeah, me too. Well, let's wrap the show up there on that note. Ben, thanks so much for joining us. A lot of great prospect talk on this episode. So please plug all the great stuff you're doing one more time for our audience, and really appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks again. Really, this was a lot of fun. And, again, huge hat tip to you guys. Love the show, and, respect the work both of you guys do, together and separately, in this community. So, thank you again so much. Prospects 1500, we have a lot of different things going on at all times, and what comes up every October, which is right around the corner, is what we call Mocktober, with our too early MILB mock. So, stay tuned on Twitter to see, who on our team, from a dynasty perspective, who are those prospects that, our team is really high on and scooping up, as the playoffs roll out on the major league side of things. Again, just can't thank you guys enough for having me on, and, definitely look forward to, keeping our conversation going in our prospect world.
Couldn't have said any better. It's always fun to talk prospects with some of the brightest minds out there, and it was awesome to be able to talk with you, my friend. And Mike, what about you, man? Anything you want to plug here before we get out of here?
No, I just want to say thanks to everyone who's supported us throughout this stretch. 5 months of doing this. We've hoped that you guys have enjoyed this. And again, I said this before, but if there's anything you can think of in the off season or going forward that you think could improve the show or help us out or help yourself out in your leagues, don't hesitate to reach out to me or Mendy.
That's right. We're here to help you win your leagues, help you to get a jump start on all your league mates digging deep like we do here every week. But for Ben, for Mike, I'm D Mendy. We will catch you guys next week for the call up week 21.